Hi again, everybody. Welcome into an all-new edition of No Holden Back. I'm joined today by a man that I've worked with the last couple of years, veteran TV director Michael Frank, joining us from his home in an undisclosed location. Michael, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing well. Thank you, Ben. Thank you for not giving out my location because so many people would flock to it. So thank you.
Now, like your wall is, can you like show what's behind your chair?
Sure, I'll move out of the way and I'll point it out from the side if you want. You'll hear me.
Just to show everybody what you got.
So up top, there's a Jim Brown autograph jersey and a Gale Sayers. In the middle is my all-time hero, Joe Namath, who signed so many things in my house. He finally said, "You know, what haven't I signed that you own, and what haven't I said?" So there's a helmet I have downstairs. He goes, "Michael, I love you." Hands it to me, goes, "Is that enough? Are we done with the signing?" There's a flip card to the left, which is the 3 deep, as you know, that we use. That's signed by Emmitt Smith. That's the game where he broke the rushing record.
Awesome.
Career numbers. I directed that game. On the right side, if you see another flip card there, to the right of Namath or left, depending on what you're looking at screen-wise.
Yep.
That is John Madden and Pat Summerall's last game together. That's the first Patriots Super Bowl win, the one where Brady leads them downfield and Vinatieri kicks the field goal. That's their last game together. And then Joe Montana, who, when I asked him to sign it, he gave me this sly grin as he writes and hands it to me. He says, "Michael, better make me look good, Joe Montana." And then Roger Staubach, who turns out is one of the coolest, funniest guys of all time, even though you'd think, oh, Navy, Dallas, he's a serious guy. Very funny man. And then to the left of the Montana thing, I'll move this a little bit so you can see it, is the all Madden team. Let me see if you can see the picture there. Do you see the picture there with all the football players?
I see it, yeah. There's a little glare on it, but I can make it out.
Okay, so that's an all Madden team. We flew all the players to Chicago, built a locker room set, and as you can see, they all put on uniforms. They all played along, and John did a 9-minute, I'd say unscripted, but I wrote it for him. But I read it to him once. He memorized it and did it almost word for word to this group. But it was a phenomenal day. Everyone in that picture was just, so cooperative, so much fun. I'll tell you a quick story about that.
We lost your video, though, before you tell the story, man.
All right, let me get it back up. The Zoom went away.
That's right.
Moving it around.
There we go. Thanks for the little tour of your humble abode there, man.
The cool thing about that picture I showed you, the all Madden team, is that we told all the guys in advance, here's what we're doing. You're going to come to Chicago. We've built a locker room set. John's going to make a speech as though you guys were going to play. We've got your uniforms, and we had guys working for months on getting not just uniforms for everybody and of the right size, but the right vintage. So Namath was wearing a 1969 Jet jersey. Walter Payton was wearing an 85 Bears. Everybody was vintage jerseys. But when they got there, some of the guys started to think, this feels a little corny. We're really going to do this? So Namath got on the set first. And when he started to get dressed, everybody got dressed. That was it. There was no more questioning. Walter Payton, who it seemed like, this is corny. He saw Namath getting dressed. He went in the corner. Not only did he get fully dressed, he asked for a roll of tape and he spatted his shoes like he was going to play because he always put white tape around his kangaroo turf shoes. Yep. But it was all led by Namath. Namath had such respect. They weren't listening to Mike Frank, but when Namath got dressed, they all got dressed. It was very cool.
That's awesome. Well, that's one of many stories that Michael has for those that aren't familiar with a good friend of mine that, like I said, the last 2 years he's directed the Army games that I've done and we've done at CBS at West Point and many others. So, and you mentioned John Madden and Pat Summerall. And I mean, I've told Michael in the couple of years we've gotten to know each other, you should write a book because the stories are awesome and incredible time you worked with those men. And I want to get into that, but I kind of want to take you back to your first love for sports and how you got into this crazy world of sports broadcasting. How did it all start for you, man?
Well, as a kid, it was my thing. I mean, I was a huge sports fan, watched all the big games, big Knick fan, Met fan back when those guys mattered. And I went to UCLA. Would like to say on a scholarship, but that was only in my mind. And I did college radio, and like every kid growing up in Long Island in the 1970s, I wanted the next Marv Albert. Get in line.
Yeah.
And I was doing the radio thing senior year, and now starting to ask people, well, how do you get a job as an announcer? As you have probably asked. And they said, okay, are you prepared to not work for 10 years? Or go get a job in a small market, and then 10 years, give us a call. Now, when you're 20 and you hit the number 10 years, I was pretty good at math. That's 50% of the life I've already lived. That seems like a long time. I got an interview with Mike Weissman, who ran NBC Sports. And his assistant was a guy named Sean McManus, who you probably have heard of.
Yeah, I've heard of him.
And when I went to meet with them, and I was pitching myself to be an announcer, they said, that's great. Why don't you go get a job in a small town for, and give us a call in 10 years. And I'm like, again, with why is 10 years this magic number? And they said, well, the other option is if you thought about going into production. And, I wasn't very bright. I thought you were either going to be an announcer or you were a cameraman. I didn't know there was this middle thing called production. I said, well, what is that? So Mike Weissman explained. He says, I'll tell you what, we're doing a baseball game in LA next month, because I probably met with them in February. It's maybe 2 months. Why don't you come and watch us? Love to. So I went out to Dodger Stadium. I walked into the TV truck, first time ever, and I was struck by two things. One, it's really cold in here. My God, you could hang meat. Two is the excitement, and this is pregame. They were doing pre-production on Fernando Valenzuela. Well, I think it was his second season, and they were breaking down how when in his pitching motion, he rolled his eyes up to the sky before he came down and pitched. And I watched these guys work with such enthusiasm, such excitement. I said, all right, next time I'll wear a sweatshirt. But two, I want to do this, because I don't know about you, I found school to be so boring. I mean, my number one thought when you say school, boredom. Classes I liked, classes I didn't like, classes I did well in, didn't do well in. Boring. Grown men can have an excitement. You can do this and get paid for it. Sign me up.
Yep.
So I did one more baseball game. I did a track meet in LA, the Pepsi Challenge or the Pepsi track meet at Drake Stadium at UCLA, which was easy. Charlie Jones was the announcer.
Nice.
Pipes on him. His pipes were like Ben Holden pipes.
Yes, I wish.
And he was such a sweetheart, much like you. And we were chatting up, and he was really nice. And there was a gentleman there by Glenn Adamo, who was the associate producer. And I said to Glenn, all right, I want to be in this business. What do I have to do? He said, well, you can stay here in LA. And whenever the circus comes to town, those were his words, you'll get hired as a runner. But if you really want to dive in and be in this business, you got to live in New York. Because at the time, NBC, CBS, ABC, there was no Fox Sports. ESPN was just starting up in Bristol, and they had log races.
Yeah.
So packed up my things, moved back to New York, moved back to my childhood bedroom, got over that depression, called up NBC. Oh, you're back in New York? Hey, that's great. We have a Yankee game in September. Give us a call then. We'll hire you. Click. Not unfriendly. And I sat down. I got out my little notepad, and I wrote, okay, it's June 25th. September, there's a game. They pay $35 for a day.
Wow.
Yeah, I can't live on that.
No, it's tough.
That's a tough stretch. So I made some calls to people that knew people. Bottom line is I was given a choice between pursuing CBS, a contact at CBS, or a contact at ABC. And little punk that I was, I actually sat down and said, where would I rather work? I like what CBS does better. They have, at that time there was Madden and Summerall, and they had the US Open tennis, and they had the golf and the Masters.
Yes.
I'd like to work there. I'm 21 years old. I have no leverage. I think I'll call them. I'd like to work there. And I called up, and they said, and for some reason, my UCLA credentials were big. And about 2 weeks later, I went in to work. In the middle of summer, I wore dress clothes. I had on wool pants, a long sleeve shirt, a tie. I think you know me well enough to know that you don't often see me in this outfit.
I've never seen you in a tie.
It was the last time I dressed that well for work. I went in, it was July 25th, 1982. It was the CBS Sports Saturday, Sports Sunday anthology show. It's 1/3, maybe a track meet, maybe a boxing match, maybe a bike race. John Tesh was the host. Brent was on vacation.
Really?
So John Tesh was the host. And I was one of those heads up on the set, doing stats. Again, freezing cold. I don't know what is with you TV people in cold. It was freezing cold. And I spent the whole day dialing up South Orange, New Jersey to get the scores of a clay tennis tournament. Jimmy Arias was playing. Every 10 minutes, hey, what's the score? Write it down. Hey, what's the score? And I did it. And then when the day was over, they came and gave me a tax form to fill out. And I was like, you're going to pay me for this? And they said, yeah, we pay. And they paid $50 for a day. That's a $15 raise. That's a big raise.
Yeah.
And I went from there, it just took off. And I haven't stopped. I mean, some might say I've stopped working, but I've been working ever since.
That's awesome, man. That's
38 years ago.
How many?
38 years
38,
ago.
huh?
It's a crazy, it's not even an understandable number. It's 38 years.
Will it mean more when you get to 40?
I might buy myself a present.
Gold
if
watch?
I have any money left. A new watch.
Right.
Buy myself my own gold watch. Even though I use my phone to check the time all the time, buy a watch.
I got like 4 watches. I haven't worn a watch in 10 years. Again, there's the number 10. I don't know why. It's in my head.
It's 10.
That's awesome, man. So when did the opportunity, I mean, again, I can't wait for you to share some of these stories that you've told me over the time we've been friends. So when did the opportunity come for you with CBS to work with John Madden and Pat Summerall, who I claim, not because I'm talking to you, I've said this for years, they are hands down to me the best duo. I don't care what the sport is. They're the best duo in the history of sports broadcasting. So when did that opportunity come for you, Michael?
Well, first of all, I'll preface by saying I agree with you. And it's not just because I worked with them, because I was already a fan when I got to work with them. Because I had watched, first of all, I'd watched Madden as a coach and loved him as a coach, even though, I wasn't a Raider fan. I loved the way he coached and the way he, ran around the sideline, had the big credential. He was always that big floppy credential.
Yeah.
And Pat, I was a fan of Pat's going back when he was with Tom Brookshire. Now, by the time I get to CBS, they've just been put together full time. By the time I got to work with them, I had been watching them for 3 years while working at CBS, never worked with them. So 1983 season, I worked on 1982 season. I was a researcher on the NFL Today with Brent, Jimmy the Greek, Irv Cross, Phyllis.
Yeah.
They were an interesting group. Should I divert and give you my Jimmy the Greek Brent story?
Okay, here's what I'm going to tell you the rest of the time we're talking here. So normally I'm getting barked at in my ear because that's what we do. Go here, go there. There are no time restrictions. You can go wherever you want, my friend. Please
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're not going to play me off with music. Okay. So
No.
I'm in the studio. I'm 22 years old or whatever. This was a strike-shortened season.
Okay.
And there was a thing called the Greek's Corner. One side of the set, there was a whole setup for Jimmy the Greek to do his picks. And Brent would come on over and sit with the Greek, and they would pre-tape, or they would rehearse their segment that he's going to do live, because the whole show was done live except for features. So in rehearsal, this was the bit. Brent goes over, sits down with Jimmy, they go through the games, and they get to the Raider game. And Jimmy goes, Brent, there's only one team that can beat the Raiders. Director cuts back to Brent. Who's that, Jimmy? And that's the Raiders themselves. Great. That's the bit. Okay. Now we're doing it live for real.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing comes. Greek says, and you know, Brent, there's only one team that can beat the Raiders. Director cuts back to Brent. And you get this.
Nothing.
No, now they cut back to Jimmy, and Jimmy's all flustered because he didn't get his setup line.
Right,
That
right.
was basically their relationship.
Okay.
So in '83, I then did regional NFL games. I worked with Dick Stockton and Wayne Walker from your area.
Yeah.
One
Ex-Lion.
of the great linebackers of all time and one of the nicest people of all time. He was wonderful. He was a lot of Niner games. He was huge in San Francisco. What CBS did back then is the guys who were big on local sports in the market did games as part of their deal. So you had Wayne Walker in San Francisco. You had Johnny Morris out of Chicago. Probably forgetting other people, but they were big locally. They did regional games. And then in '84, I was back in the studio as a production assistant, BA, pulling footage, doing graphics, whatever. So late in '85, Madden had a couple of specials, interview specials. Larry Bird was one, Bobby Knight was one, Walter Payton was one. Story there, I wasn't there. When they came to set up in Walter Payton's house, they dropped the tripod in the floor of what I'm told was a beautiful wood floor and took a divot.
Oh, boy.
And Walter said to the crew, do not show that to my wife. Do not show that to my wife. She'll throw all of you out of here. So I worked on the show. I remember specifically the Larry Bird interview because it was scheduled for the day after Game 7, which they lost in '85 to the Lakers.
Yeah.
And we're all thinking, he's not showing up. Or if he does, he's going to be taciturn. You're going to get no answers. He came in the room. The pressure was thick, and he was wonderful. The night before his loss, I'm sure he wasn't happy because those guys aren't happy. But he did a great interview. So now I go off and I do the Tour de France. This is the second summer in a row. Spent like a month in France chasing after the cyclists, and I get the road position, so I was on the road the whole time. And we've just done a race in Lyon, France. The stage was ended in Lyon, France. And just by whatever coincidence, I was in the backyard of the hotel with the French crew who somehow had a football. I don't know how they had a football. And I was showing them how football was played. And I go up to my room. I get into a hot bath. I have my little speakers in my Walkman. I'm blasting Born in the USA. It's just been out for a year or whatever. And my hotel room phone rings, which is very rare. I mean, this is a billion years before cell phones. Rare to get a phone call in my hotel room. I pick up the phone. It's a guy named Scott Johnson, who's the director at ESPN, does the College World Series. He says, hey, Mike, the schedule just came out for August and September. You're listed as the BA, which is production assistant, lead position, doing graphics and all that.
Yeah.
With me, no one had told me. No such thing as maybe calling up and negotiating a deal. Like okay, I guess you expect me to come back from France and do this job. I'm now the lead BA on this crew, which at the time and still is, that's the biggest job you can get at that position is once you've moved on to what they call the A football crew. So whether it's a Sunday night crew now or Troy and Joe or, Jim Nance and Tony, when you move from being a BA on any other area and now you're on that job, that's the biggest promotion you could get. So I guess he liked me from the Larry Bird interview. Also, some of the guys who had worked with him in the past, Lance Barrow, Richie Zients, Mike Arnold, who had graduated from the system, they were confident to John. He trusted their tastes. All right, who's coming up you think I'd get along with? It wasn't just who's good at their job, but who's got the personality to give up to get along with me.
Yeah.
And they recommended me. I thanked all three of them and started with them in August of 1985, 24 years old.
So, but that position grew, the position that you were in, there was much more growth still ahead, right? So tell us about that and how you grew with John and Pat working with them.
Well, I can tell you this. The first year, I wasn't very good. I would grade myself that first year. I'd give myself maybe a B-. It was such a leap in the standards, in terms of, there's what standards you work for if you're working maybe at WINS or some local radio station or UCLA radio. Then you get into network television and find out, there's a whole different standard here. Okay. Then there's the Madden Summerall, a football crew standard, and it's a whole nother high bar. And so it took a while to get, the lay of the land. And then after the season was over, I got a little time to look back on how the season went. And I did golf for that season. And believe it or not, golf graphics, particularly before everything became computerized, hardest job I've ever done. It's harder than directing. The speed, the simultaneous play, no graphic interface. I learned a whole new way of looking at graphics and how to do them. Also, I got a different graphic operator named Charlie Carlucci. And Charlie on the keyboard is like having Elton John or Billy Joel. I was able to think graphics to air. Before we'd hear an idea, we'd get an idea from hearing something Patton Johnson on television, and I'd look at him to start forming the idea. He's already started typing, got the shell up, looking at me. What's the thing here? And that changed things. What also changed was that back then there was an executive producer named Terry O'Neill, who was the executive producer, who used to come out of the bullpen in Thanksgiving and produce the rest of the way. He was tough. He was a tough taskmaster. He had great ideas, but he'd have Saturday afternoon for a Sunday game. And he had these ideas on Monday, they were executable. Saturday afternoon, they were tough. He, through a whole series of issues, CBS used to have 4 executive producers. There was a bad fight one weekend where Terry and Frank Cicchini, who's doing golf, they kind of canceled each other out. Neil Pilson, the president, goes, okay, enough with the 4, we're going to have 1. So that Terry lost out, and now Bob Fenner produced the whole year. It made things a lot smoother and easier. I figured out what I was doing. I had this genius on the keyboard next to me. I figured out what was going on, and that was the next leap to that. After that, they moved you up. Okay, you're a great BA. Congratulations, we're going to graduate you. And the tough thing is they make you an AD, which is the next level up, but they throw you to the bottom of the heap again. Ooh. And now you're back doing the low-level games as an AD when you just did the high-level games in the lower position. And back then, those low-level games were done with 4 cameras and 2 tape machines, believe it or not.
Oh, wow.
And I was working with people, no offense to them, but they hadn't worked ever with John Madden and Pat Summerall. They didn't know there was a level above network television and competency, and that was hard for me to make that adjustment. Okay, my position is higher, but I'm not working at the level that John and Pat did. And after a year of that, John at that time was traveling by bus, and he had an assistant named Sandy Montag. Now, I had gotten Sandy the job because Sandy was one of my runners back that first year, 1985. Wow. And John's assistant, halfway through the year, had quit. And John said, I'm not going to hire anyone else because they don't do anything. I said, they don't do anything because you hired the wrong guy. I go, I have 12 people a weekend that work for me who are better than who you had. Monday morning, his agent from CAA, or from IMG, Gene Sage, calls me up and says, John says you've got people? See, I got people. She goes, have them call me and we'll have interviews. So I looked at my sheet of paper, and every person that I was thinking of, I had to cross off because they were all relatives. Okay, my cousin's not doing it. He's in medical school. This cousin's a lawyer. This friend's a dentist. That's my sister. Sandy's really the only person I could really recommend. So called Sandy, want this job? He goes, yeah, I'll go talk to them. 4 days go by. I totally forget about it. Sandy comes to my office. He's dressed in a suit. And I didn't recognize him because he always came to work in basically, sweats and slept on my hotel room floor in, I think, feety pajamas. And I said, did you get the job? He goes, well, I don't know, but they invited me to come this weekend. I said, great. So at that time, John traveled only by train.
Wow.
And film was film. Coach's film, we call it today, is tape.
Yeah. So
Sandy had to carry a 16 millimeter projector that weighed more than Sandy. Sandy's about 5'2", and the projector weighs like 40 pounds. Just, after 1 year, Sandy had his arms, like the left arm is here and the right arm is down. So we're at the Grand Hotel in Georgetown. It's me, John, and Bob Stenner, the producer.
Right.
And it's Friday afternoon, and John goes, let's watch some film. So I ring Sandy's room. I said, can you bring the projector up? John wants to watch film. And so Sandy says to me on the phone, does John need me to run the projector? So without thinking, I say to John Madden, hey, John, do you need Sandy to run the projector? Oh, he blew a gasket. What? What's wrong with you schmucks? I've been coaching for 25 years. You don't think I had to run a projector, a film? Who did you send me? Sandy, I don't think he needs you. Just drop the projector, and if you're smart, run. And we watched the film, and Sandy got the job. And for about 3 years, he traveled. First off, he's the one who got the bus deal for John, got John off trains and onto buses with the interim stop in vans I'll tell you about in a second.
Okay.
But he got the bus deal. But after 3 years, Sandy's bent was Sandy wanted to be an agent. And so he wanted off the bus. John says he used to wake up in the morning and on the bus somewhere in Nebraska, and he'd hear Sandy on the phone go, yeah, it's a great deal, but he can't do it. He works Mondays. John's thinking, I don't work Mondays. Well, Sandy was already doing a deal for Al Michaels. So the deal was Sandy wanted off the bus to be an agent. And now John suddenly remembers 3 years later that, oh yeah, Mike Frank's the one who hired this kid. So I said, look, I found you your first assistant. I'll find you your second assistant. So as I started to pitch the job to people, hey, you'll work football season. The rest of the year you'll have off to do this or that. I realized that, I'm kind of done with this production thing. The AD thing isn't much better than being a BA. I'm just as burnt out. I'm 28 years old. I'm burnt out of this. Hey, John, how about me? And so I worked for 2 years as his assistant. First year was wonderful because it was a break from the tension of sports. And the first off season, I had my first house, my first car. I lived normal. It was fun. But then the second season rolls around. Now I'm a 30-year-old man getting chickens and Diet Coke for a living. This is not a career path. So CBS welcomed me back with open arms. Interestingly, Terry O'Neill, who I just kind of referred to earlier, not the most flattering of terms, he's now running NBC, having replaced Mike Weissman.
Okay.
That's how small this world is. So Terry O'Neill, let me kill the phone.
No worries.
Stop. How do I stop this? Well,
You can just answer it if you want.
oh, no, I don't like anybody. Stop.
No one talks on the phone anymore anyways, right?
No. No one, anyone calling me my home phone doesn't know me.
Right.
So the world becomes that much smaller. Terry O'Neill, who used to run CBS, who was a pain in the ass when I had to work for him, now runs NBC. He offers me a job there. So going back and forth, CBS, NBC, trying to get a little leverage, a little money, a little better position. NBC's offer was this. We'd like you to be the sideline, remember this is 1990. We'd like you to be the sideline producer for our guy, The Juice. 1990. Do I want to be a sideline producer with O.J. Simpson? That sounds like a pretty good deal. O.J. seems like a nice guy. Or come back to home where I know everybody, I know Pat and John, no hard feelings from John. I asked him point blank, are you going to be hurt, upset, angry if I leave working for you, but now come back as the AD in that crew? He goes, no, I still get to have you. Okay, I'm back to CBS. But I could have been the guy behind the wheel, and I'm going to tell you this right now, whatever our feelings are about whether OJ did it or not, I think we know, I would have gotten into Mexico. I'm a better driver than Al Cowlins. I would have gotten there. So then it's 4 years at CBS as the AD, Associate Director. Various things happen along there. Then, much to our shock, in December of 1993, Fox steals football from CBS.
Yep.
Now, everyone's wondering, well, where's John going to go? Because everyone's going to follow John. Fox has no sports department. They're going to hire a lot of people. If John goes there, there's a lot of people going to follow him there. But if he goes to NBC or ABC, not many people are going with them. They have departments. So everyone was on pins and needles. Where is he going to go? Where is he going to go? Where is he going to go? And some people would just stay at CBS to work or whatever CBS has. And it's a time for a lot of worrying about where's our job going? Where's this business going? And NBC threw a ton of money at John. They offered him his own train car. CBS didn't have football, so there was nothing to offer him there. Monday Night Football wanted him, big way for ABC. And, of course, Fox wanted him because that would legitimize Fox, a department currently of 0, gets
Yep.
John Madden, they're on the map. So the rumors are going around and around and around. We don't know where he's going. John is a great poker player. Doesn't tell anybody. Personally, I was hoping he'd go to Monday Night Football because I used to do the opening teases. And I always wanted to do the Monday Night Football opening. So I was hoping that he'd go there and maybe take me. So I used to sidle up to his ear and go, bum, 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 bum. He would just laugh. That's all I got from him was a laugh. So we're at the NFC Championship in Dallas. It's Niners at Dallas. We all know it's our last dance with CBS. It's very emotionally, tough.
Mm-hmm.
John, Pat, Bob Stenner, the producer, Sandy Grossman, the director, they're in with Jimmy Johnson having their production meeting. Now, normally I would be in there as the AD too, but because we had 3 replay directors and me, the decision was too many people in with Jimmy. Let's just make it the 4 of us. Fine. So I'm sitting outside the door, and a gentleman by the name of Dave Hahn, John's bus driver, comes to me and says, "Where's Coach?" I said, "Coach is in a meeting." He goes, "I need to talk to him. I got to get him a note from Sandy. They're in a meeting. You want to go in? Go in." He goes, "I don't want to go in." I said, "I'll go in." So he hands this little tiny, like origami piece of paper. It was like something out of Blade Runner. This little tiny thing that I didn't want to open. It's none of my business. I take the piece of paper. I go into Jimmy's office, and Jimmy, is so intense. His face is like prime rib red. His hair is flying. He's sweating, and God bless the 4 of them, Pat and John and Bob. I say, look at me like I have, I'd say Corona, but before that, they look at me like I'm a complete stranger. Oh, right. This is comfortable. This is very comfortable. Could you at least? Yeah. And Jimmy doesn't even stop. Jimmy's still going. So I go in there. I hand this little piece of origami to John. John unwraps it like this, puts it back in his pocket. I leave. Turns out this was the offer from Murdoch, which was he's on the runway. He wants John now. He's heading to the affiliate meeting and wants to say, not only do we have football, we have John Madden. Wow. And my understanding is the offer at that moment, the little origami that I handed over, was doubling John's offer from 4 to $8.5 million a year.
Wow.
To which I think all of us would have said yes. And then everything fell into place.
That's awesome, man. I don't know if you ever told me that one. That's a great one, man.
That's what happened.
That's how it went down. So in total, how many years did you spend with Pat and John doing football?
10 years. 2 years as the BA. Then the 2 years I was John's assistant. I did graphics, Chiron stats. 5 years as their associate director. So yeah, that's 9 full years. But then I also was a replay director on their last season together. So I did the whole playoff run with them and that Super Bowl, that first Brady Super Bowl. I count that as a season. Plus I produced or worked on most of the All Madden teams, which also involved John and Pat. And those were adventures in and of their own. And then I did, after Pat and John broke up and John went to ABC first to do Monday Night Football before he went to NBC. Yeah. I did Pat's last season, year 2000. It was him and Brian Baldinger. We did about probably a dozen Cowboy games. I think they were 1-11. It was, these were the lean years. I think Anthony Wright was the quarterback, if I have that right. Dave Campo was the coach. They were bad. But it was fun being with Pat.
So, I mean, we could probably sit here for 3 hours and all the stories that you've told me about Pat, but what are some that are just you'll never forget, front and center? What are some of your best memories of working with the legend that was Pat Summerall?
A bunch of things. So, first off, the thing about Pat is Pat had one of the wickedest, quickest, fastest minds that anybody has. He was up there with any of the great comics as instant ad-libs. I'll clean this one up a little bit. We are doing a game. I'm the associate director. We're at CBS still, so it's 92 or 93. And we're in a meeting room, as you always are the night before a game. And we always used to have a large pad in the room to draw for John in case he ever wanted to draw up a play.
Okay.
Once in a while he did. There might be weeks that go by he didn't. But it was always there just in case. So one week he gets up to write on this pad. There's no pad. And he turns to the production assistant at the time, a guy named John Coleman'sberger, who was nicknamed Slappy. I nicknamed him Slappy. And he goes, Slappy, where's my pad? And John Slappy starts to say, well, you know, in these hotels, they charge us an arm and a leg for these things. And I mean, like in New York, they may charge us $500 to rent this pad or whatever. And Bob, the producer, goes, but we have to have it. Who told you couldn't have it? Well, you know, Jane in finance says we can't have a pad anymore. So I said, oh, screw Jane. And out of the corner, Pat goes, I made that mistake one time.
Oh,
John
man.
forgot about the pad at that point. The interesting thing was in meetings with teams, John took notes. He never had a pad. He'd always say to Bob Stenner, give me some paper. Bob, who had this, you know, calligraphy-like penmanship, he would tear out 3 really nice sheets of paper, and John would write notes all over it, and there'd be tobacco juice from chewing on a cigar. And then he'd fold it up into 3 pieces and put it in his pocket. I never saw Pat write anything down.
Nothing.
He just sat there listening. Flip card in his hand. Game came. Anything that was discussed in that room came out of Pat's head. He didn't have to look or refer to notes. He had that kind of a memory with that. My greatest joy with him was the openings, because, you know, you think of great football opens. We'd get a big soundtrack from the movie Hook or Air Force One or Jurassic Park, and I'd write some flowery copy for Pat, and I'd write it in Pat's voice. Here on the frozen tundra, Red Favre, and I tried to read it in his voice, so I would cadence it out. And he used to always say to me, I enjoy your writing, not too many words. So there was a New Year's Eve game in New Orleans. It was Philly, New Orleans. It was when the Saints had the great defense with the 4 great linebackers,
Yeah.
you know, Ricky Vaughn, Pat Swilling, that group.
Yep.
And the Eagles had Reggie White and Jerome Brown in that group. So it was
That's Joyner.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Clyde Simmons.
Yep.
So it was a rock and a hard place. So I used the Rolling Stones song Rock and a Hard Place. Pat had like one line at the front to introduce it, and then the Stones played out. It was not well received. I made a mistake. Even though it worked musically, it wasn't the right thing to do. You want Pat to have that opening thing. So a couple of years later, we had a Dallas versus Giants game in November. The Cowboys were on the rise. This must have been like 92. Cowboys were on the rise. It's the trio. It's Emmett, Michael, Troy. They're finally moving up. And the Giants are now heading backwards.
Right.
Giants come off a Monday night game where they got their butts kicked in the rain. Perfect choice. Let's do November Rain. And I wrote it so that you had Pat did a line, and then Axel sang a line, and Pat did a line. And I thought it worked great, but I was concerned that this might be too avant-garde for them. It is Guns N' Roses after all. And then we didn't have great success the last time we used rock, but I did put in a lot of Pat. Also, since I had just been sued the year before by Yoko Ono, which I can tell you that story, I had any more careful about my cavalier attitude towards just using music. And there were different rules that we skirted, like you're not supposed to cut the music up. So I called Guns N' Roses, and I got their manager to call me back from tour in South America. I can't tell you the guy's name, but he's very nice. I told him what we wanted to do. I told him about the rules, the ASCAP, the BMI. Goes, do whatever you want. Just don't do a record skip thing like you're doing a rap thing. I go, no, we're just going to shorten it. You'll never hear the edit. I said, but my boss is going to want paperwork and this. He goes, Michael, I work for Guns N' Roses. We're on tour in South America. You're not getting paperwork. I will just make you a verbal promise. Axel loves John Madden. You'll have no problem with us.
Cool.
All right. I don't think no problem with us would work in today's climate, but it did back then.
Probably not, no.
So I bring the script in. Saturday night, we watch the Open. People say, it's nice, it's nice. I see Pat making a couple of notes on his piece of paper. Doesn't say anything. I go, I don't know if he likes it. Next day, we voice it over in the truck. It ends. It feels perfect as I envisioned it. And then I hear booming over the loudspeaker, Michael, what is this music I'm listening to? I'm like, oh boy, not going to like it. I go, I bet that's a Guns N' Roses. And what's the name of the young man singing? I said, well, that's Axl Rose. And at this point, I'm like, he's going to hate it.
Right.
Could you get me the CD? I enjoy it. So I went out and bought Use Your Illusions 1 and 2 for Pat, gave it to him. He seemed very touched. I don't know if he ever played it, but my picture, because I knew Pat had a big rig pickup truck. And I just used to picture Pat, cruising through Dallas with a gun rack, horns in the hood, and blasting Axl Rose. And I never wanted to do any different.
That's awesome.
I enjoy this young man.
That's awesome. Excuse me. So, how about John? I mean, you touched on a few, but anything else in terms of John, just one of those stories where you'll never forget it? I'm sure you got many, but were there one or two that still stand front and center for you, man?
Let's see. John was also brilliant and had one of the great senses of humor of all time. He loved to be made to laugh. We used to do these things called funnies. It started off when I got the job as the BA, where Lance Barrow said to me as he handed over the baton, when you show the graphics, throw in a fake graphic now or then to just see if they're paying attention.
Yep.
Well, I went a different way, which is I started throwing jokes in there. And these guys loved jokes. And the jokes were more in the vein of a Comedy Central roast. There was a running series of jokes. And every week, working the same thing, and these guys would laugh like crazy. So we had heard that one of our friends had a wedding where his sister, at the wedding, someone has stepped on the tail that the bride wears, the long train, the train.
Yeah. Yep.
And they stepped on the train, and because the train was bobby pinned to her head, she got pulled down. The whole wedding party went down. Somebody broke their arm.
Oh, boy.
And I spent all football season negotiating with my friend, can we please have the tape? Can we please have the tape? Finally, he relented and got the tape. So at this point, this was saved for the NFC Championship. Again, probably 92-ish, 93-ish. And I didn't let him know that we had the tape. And we had our funnies. And it was standing room only. Not only did everybody in the crew want to be in the room, the NFL Today people wanted to be in the room. It was standing room only. And I knew this was going to bring down the house. And we even talked about maybe I should have some oxygen tanks and paramedics standing by for Pat and John because they could laugh. They could. When the tape came up that showed this wedding fiasco, and it was just as described with it, they're coming down the aisle and there's the build. And I hear them going, oh no, oh no. And then you see someone tug on the bride's head. And then she goes down and the mother goes down and she breaks her arm. I seriously thought we'd have to put John and Pat in gurneys and wheel them to the hospital. They were laughing so hard. John was pounding the table and snot balls were coming. I was laughing so hard. It was crazy. On the other side of things, you didn't want to make mistakes with John. So
not bad.
John would come up with these stats that weren't official stats. Like, let's chart where Lawrence Taylor lines up. Left side, right side, over the guard, over the tackle, over the center. We'd hire a kid to keep track.
Right.
And so third quarter would come and John would say, hey, show us what you got. And we'd put the stat up and he'd go, John go, no. You got Lawrence Taylor twice on the left side. I've already seen him there 3 times myself. So we would just start juicing the numbers. And it became, let's put up a number until John buys it. Let's see, he doesn't buy 2. See if he'll buy 4. And you'd see the numbers changing. And John go, I know what you're doing down there. We're not using it. I know what you guys are doing. There was an unfortunate mistake. I was the BA. Sandy Montag was traveling with John, was my stat guy. Giants are beating, I think, the Niners at home at the Meadowlands. And John asks Bob Stenner over the cough keys, when was the last time the Giants won a home playoff game?
Ooh.
because he wants to be able to say, look at the fans, they're going nuts. They haven't won.
Yeah.
So, Sandy, look it up. Now, truth be told, we should have all known this going into the game. Be ready for this.
Right.
Sandy looks it up and says, 1956. Are you sure? Yep, 1956. Hit my button to Bob. Bob, it's 1956. Bob says to John's ear, John, they haven't won a home playoff game since 1956. John says, look at these fans going crazy here at Giants Stadium. No wonder they're celebrating. They haven't won here since 1956. Pat goes, actually, we won here we won at Yankee Stadium in 1958. I should know. I kicked the winning field goal. Oh, my Lord. So John's yelling at Bob over the coffee. Bob's saying to me, Michael, please tell me you're right. Please. And I'm thinking, there's no way we're right. Pat played in it.
Right.
Sandy, look at the book. He goes, no, it says, 1958. Oh. Yeah, there was hell to pay by everybody. I'm almost over it. I was 30 years ago. I'm almost over it. You didn't want to be wrong in front of John. But I could tell you that everything I did ever since at any level, I still look over my shoulder at, okay, I'm glad the bosses like my work. I'm glad Ben Holden likes my work. If John watched this game, would John like this work? That's really? Like, think of John Hausman from The Paper Chase. He was the toughest professor you ever had, and God dang it, he was always right.
Got a good John Hausman name.
Yes. If anyone's watching the Jordan special, which I think is tremendous, and now finding out that, in terms of how he was on the court, he took no prisoners. It wasn't, as by his own admission, a nice guy. That was John. He wanted to win. He wanted to be the best. And it was important to be the best, the best, the best. And he pushed you to be the best. And, he taught you to work at a standard that you weren't quite used to. And it became, no, this is Madden standard.
That's awesome, man. So you mentioned The Last Dance, which we may or may not get into, but I'm just going to follow up there. Again, we had our little production meeting yesterday, right? So I'm 49, so I'm just gonna get that out. I still believe the greatest era of basketball was not Michael Jordan's era. I believe it was the 80s when Dick Stockton, who I idolized as a kid, I love listening to him, man. Gary Bender, another guy I love to listen to, along with Pat, obviously, and John. And you were telling me yesterday that you had a little run-in with Jordan at the All-Star game when CBS still had the NBA deal, right?
Yes. So also, I worked with Gary Bender.
You did?
Sweetheart.
Cool.
And also, since you're talking about The Last Dance, the game was with Doug Collins as an announcer.
Yeah.
He was terrific.
Okay.
And I worked a long time with Dick Stockton, who is a terrific guy. And I agree with you, along with Marv Albert. Those are the two voices of basketball for me.
Yeah.
So 1988, I was assigned to do a feature with Frank Layden, who was the general manager of the Utah Jazz, a great character.
Yep.
And the gimmick that was assigned to me was Frank Layden is going to go around the All-Star game in Chicago and hand out his business card. I think it was a Pat O'Brien idea, who I also worked with for a long time.
Yeah.
He's going to recruit players to come play for the Jazz.
Okay.
So it was great. He did a bit with Moses Malone when he was at the top of his game, with Dr. J. We had a whole thing with him. And the whole bit was he was secretly recruiting everybody to come to play for the Jazz. So we go in the locker room. This was probably the day before the All-Star game, because we were shooting around before the game. And we shoot a bit with Michael Jordan. And from what I remember was Jordan was wonderful, sweet, had a stack of Air Jordans that, I wish I had in my house. And we taped a bit. I don't remember what the bit was. I still think now of much funnier bits we should have done. But at this point, Jordan hasn't won a championship. He's had the 63-point playoff game. But he's a great player. But in 88, he's not yet Magic. He's not yet Bird. So that night I go into the edit room. And I'm editing from midnight until you're done. And I was assigned a 2-minute, 30-second hole for a 45-minute halftime. And in television, every second counts.
Mm-hmm.
And because this was my first ever feature, I wasn't going to come in a second over. Also, this was back before you did all the flash cuts that you can do now. You could make a 10-second play into a 2-frame play and get the message across. This is where things ran linear. There was no MTV flash cut, jump cut. So I'm editing. It's now about 3 a.m. And as I'm coming down the finish, I realized that I've set up this joke with Dr. J, which had a first part, a middle part, and a payoff. If I don't do all 3 parts, it doesn't work. But if I use Michael Jordan, I'm going to be like around 2:36. Now, I could tell you in today's world or, within a year, I would have laughed at 6 seconds.
Right.
The piece is great. The 6 seconds have to count. Make it work. It's my first ever piece. So I called Eric Mann, the producer, woke him up. That was fun. And I said, hey, Eric, when you say 2:30, is 2:30 2:30-ish or is 2:30 2:30? He goes, Michael, 2:30 is 2:30. Click. Well, I wasn't going to argue. That would come later in my career. All right. Jordan hits the floor. Piece comes out right at 2:30. Piece airs. Everybody loves it. Meantime, my job at halftime is over. I handed in the piece. They all love it. I'm going to go watch halftime. And I sat right along the baseline for the end where the dunking was happening. This is the Michael Jordan Dominique year in Chicago.
Nice.
And I could still feel it, get chills from it. When Jordan starts to mark off his paces and go to the far end of the court, there was an air of anticipation in that building, like everyone was collectively holding their breath. And then when he takes off from the foul line, dead silence, and when he dunks it, an explosion like I've never heard. And my first thought was, oh, fuck, I didn't put Jordan in the halftime piece.
Whoops.
Yeah. And then he went down into the court and did it again. And I had the same thought. And I could say, even yesterday thinking about it, I said, I could have done a bit where Leighton, put on his shoes and then said something, come to, Utah, we'll get your own shoe line. But we didn't. But let me tell you something. That dunk moment ranks as my number 2 all-time working on in-person thing I've ever witnessed. It was unbelievable.
Wow.
And that was the day for me. He went from Michael Jordan to Air Jordan because he was also wearing the Jordan 3s. For those of you who are sneaker collectors and are into the Jordan line, I think the Jordan 3 was the best one they ever made. And I was there for it, and all I could think is he should have been in my piece at halftime. Oh, I should have just done 2:36. Let him see how great it is. Let them make the cut. But first piece, I'm not going to do that.
That's a hell of a story, man. That's what I've been saying. If we've been doing this, just the stories you got, man, are incredible. So that, somebody once told me a good interviewer doesn't necessarily have a list of questions. They listen to who they're interviewing.
Yes.
And so I have to follow up. You said that was number 2 of your all-time moments in your career. So would you mind sharing your top 5?
Absolutely not. Number
in any
1.
order you want.
What do you want? You want 5 down? You want 1 up?
Whatever you want, man. Go 5 up. I think that builds a little excitement, don't you?
So 5 down. Let me just see. Let's see. I would say 5 would be I directed the playoff game, Saints at Niners. When the Niners finally win and go to the Super Bowl, there were I think there were 5 scores, back and forth. In the last 5 minutes, it was the game where the Niners go ahead on the naked boot by Alex Smith. And
I remember.
There's a great scene. Vernon Davis comes over and hugs Jim Harbaugh and hugging and crying. But there were 5 scores at the end, back and back. I would say 4 would be I was a runner at the Jim Valvano NC State win at the Pit in '83.
Oh, man. I didn't know that.
Yes, and I'll tell you, from that one, I'm in tape. I'm a runner. The producer, Craig Silver, had gotten a pair of tickets for a friend who never showed up and said, Mike, why don't you go out and sell these and we'll have money to buy sodas and popcorn for the crew. Now, I think the tickets were $20 a pop on face.
Really?
So He said, see what you can get, whatever you can get. He wasn't looking to make money, just looking like just get enough so we can treat the hot dogs and popcorn and so I go in the parking lot and I bump into, by coincidence, my very best friend from college, Mark Rowan, and he's with Keith Glass, whose father, Joe Glass, was Larry Brown's agent, and Keith Glass was like one of Larry Brown's like ninth assistants. So they've come to the game. They have no tickets. I said, let me ask my boss if I can sell you these. So I go into Craig and look, Craig, I bumped into two really good friends. Any chance I can sell it to them for just face value? Because yeah, they're your friends, give them for face value. So I go back outside, and as I'm handing the two tickets to them, and they're handing me a whopping $40 in cash, our boss, Ted Shaker, walks right by and sees this transaction. And the only thing I could say was, don't worry, Teddy, it's face value. He told everybody that he thought I was a ticket scalper. First off, they weren't my tickets. I wasn't seeing any money. I got my boss to agree, sell it to them for face value so we could buy popcorn for the crew. And for about a year and a half, I was considered a ticket scalper. So in tape for that game. Number 3 is a real oddball. 1984-ish, I'm over in Europe doing a ski series with CBS. It's John Tesh. It's Billy Kidd. My first ever time skiing is with Billy Kidd, an Olympic silver medalist. Wonderful guy. And the mentality, CBS Sports, Saturday Sports Center was like Wide World of Sports. You had to find a theme to make this palatable for a U.S. audience. Well, U.S. downhill skiing had no history. No U.S. man had ever won. I don't think anyone had ever won a downhill World Cup. Billy Kidd was a slalom guy. I don't know if he won a gold or a silver. He was a slalom guy.
I remember him, yeah.
The big theme by the producer, he's a former ABC guy named John Faratzis under the Rune Arledge tutelage, was, okay, it's the Austrian-Swiss rivalry. As everyone in America knows, the biggest ski rivalry is the Austrians versus the Swiss. You got me hooked.
Of course.
But every day, the practice times would come in, and I was in charge of getting the times. I'd look at it and go, there's an American here who's up in the top 5 every day. And on Friday, before the Saturday race, he has the fastest time. And the producer says to me, Michael, listen to me. I've done 3 Olympics. I work with Rune Arledge. No American is going to make a dent in this race. He's 18th coming down the hill. If you're not in the top 15, the slope is too cut up for a fast run. If this guy finishes top 10, I will give you a sexual favor that will go nameless. Okay, whatever. So we're taking in the world feed, meaning we control no cameras. John Tesh goes to the bottom of the hill with the camera crew for post-race interviews. John and the producer, the same Craig Silver, the ticket scalper. Yeah. He goes, they go to the top of the mountain to get their shots, and in the truck is just me and Peter Blackman, the director. My job is to watch the feed as it comes down, no announcers, and just watch the times. Okay, first guy comes down, he does it, I'll round it off, 2 minutes. Okay, that's your time to beat. Next guy does 1:59.7. Okay, new leader. My job is to keep track of all these times so that we could say, all right, Ben Holden, 6th down the hill, time to beat is this. Ben is now currently 3rd. So Bill Johnson comes down, number 18. He skis off the course. His leg goes up in the air. Somehow he gets his leg down, gets back on the course, doesn't miss the gate, crosses the finish line, and I look at my times, and he's the leader. And I'm like, my heart's pounding. I have to have made a mistake. He can't be the leader. I've already been told American has never won. He's 18th down the hill. He went off the course with his leg and back on the course. I don't even know what the ruling for that is. I have no announcers to listen to help me out. And I'm looking at Peter and I'm saying, Peter, I have either really messed up or this guy just won. And I was sweating. I was in flop sweat. And I'm looking through my times. Where did I find my mistake? Because, maybe all my times are off. And about 15 minutes later, John Ferraz is the producer. They come flying in. They're all excited. The kid won. And this became history making, so that's why it's my number 3. And by the way, I never got that sexual favor, John Faratzis. You owe me that. 2 is the aforementioned dunk contest. Do you want to hazard a guess to number 1?
Ooh, which one though? Yeah, we haven't
His
gotten to
own,
golf yet, but we will get more.
his
So
own league.
86? No, it wouldn't have been 86.
Yes, 86.
Was it?
Yeah, I was
Okay.
there. I was the second BA in graphics running the scoreboard. Artie Kempner, who at long time was the lead director at Fox
Yeah.
on
Heard the
football.
name.
He's the lead on NASCAR. He's doing the lead chyron. I'm doing the second chyron.
Okay.
And what I remember most about it, obviously everyone knows the story of it,
Yeah.
was that the way it worked is, and the way it still works is there's a scoring person all over the course, at the tee box, at the fairway, at the green. And their job is on headset, they press a button and they announce, all right, through 15, Brooks Koepka, minus 15. So now he was 15 through 14, so he's even par in the hole. This way you had your scores for your scoreboard and for your graphics. It was not computerized. It was really hard. And if the player was on your monitor playing, you just update it on yourself. So you see Nicklaus roll it a putt, and you hear Vern go, yes, sir. Okay, that's a birdie. Make him now minus 12 or whatever. You didn't need to hear the score. But so the putt would get made. You'd see it in the screen. You'd hear the roaring. But then the scorer at that green had to press his button to make the announcement. The roar, the famous Augusta roars, were now compressed and going through this little, mono, TV line or telephone line headset. The sound, it was like the loudest seashell. If you ever pick up a seashell on the beach, this was
Yeah.
a seashell played at the level of the Who in their prime.
Oh,
And
wow.
you'd get a goosebump because the putt would go in, half a beat. All right, through 16, Jack. And I'm getting goosebumps now replaying it. That would be number one.
Hard to top that, man. That's good. That's a hell of a list, man. That's good stuff. Cool. Thanks for sharing that.
Anything.
So you have, I know one of the things we talked about yesterday is staying with golf. And you mentioned something about having to do an interview to me with Curtis Strange. Tell that one to those out there listening and watching.
So there's something called the Masters movie, and what it is, it's the hour or so highlight tape for the club. In the old days, this was done on a film, and it was just for Augusta members. They'd watch it when the season closed. Every member got a copy. It was not put out to the public. Starting in 84, Frank Giacchini, the producer, started talking with the club about, you should make this something you sell. So in 1984, CBS did a demo, which I worked on. In 1985, they had the deal. David Winter was the producer. And he had 2 camera crews that were out in the course getting extra coverage, color stuff. Back then, there wasn't 18-hole coverage. So if you were at 8 and got an eagle, we were the only ones that would have it. So 1985, Curtis Strange is the leader when he comes to 13. And where it's pretty much a given now that guys, go for it in 2. Back then, it was a real decision. Do you go for it in 2? Do you lay up? Guys now, unless they hit a terrible tee shot, nobody lays up. He goes for it at 13, puts it in the water. Gets to 15, same thing. Doesn't lay up, puts it in the water. Curtis loses the tournament. I now have to interview Curtis because I used to get one-on-one access before the media because we were the Masters movie.
Right.
Curtis looks like he's just survived a plane crash. Hat's back like this. He's pale as a ghost. He looks like, there's been a death. I'm there with the crew. David's already told me overhead, said, you got to ask him, please, about, I don't think there was a please. You got to ask him about the layup at 13 and 15. Why did he lay up? All right, here we go. Light on, mic up. Start asking him a question or two. And I said, Curtis, why didn't you lay up at 13? And he starts his answer, and the light on the camera goes out. And the cameraman, Andy K, starts tapping me in the shoulder. Hey, lights out, you got to start again. I look at him like, there is no way I am asking this question again. We get what we get. They'll fix it in post. I am not asking again. But the fun thing for me was after the Butler Cabin interview, after doing the Nance interview, and back in the day, maybe it was the Brent interview, before the winner went out to the putting green for the ceremonial green jacket, I got a 3-question one-on-one interview with the winner.
Nice.
This was nerve-wracking.
I bet.
This was nerve-wracking. So the thrills where I got to do Tigers wins 2, 3, 4. I worked, I think, 14 Masters total. I got to do Tigers wins 2, 3, and 4. It wasn't there in 97. Wasn't there last year. Wish I'd been there last year.
Oh, my goodness.
But I got them after the Tigers slam. And that was I still think that's the greatest accomplishment in golf. Didn't get enough credit for that he won all 4 at the same time. But the nerve-wracking thing is you're interviewing him, you're compressed for time, and I'm listening to that. I'm trying to get the bite for the movie. And so, I'm trying any way I can. He really underplayed the Tiger Slam thing. He was really nonplussed by that. That's for other people to decide. Couldn't. And out of the corner of my eye, you'd get the green jacket guys who were serious.
Yep.
Wrap it up.
Move it along.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're firing the time. You don't want to get thrown out of Augusta. You don't want to have them go back and complain about you. You also want to try to get the bite from Tiger. But standing with Tiger Woods after he's won the Tiger Slam, that's pretty good.
I'd say. I mean, I had a chance to be around him when he'd come to Buick Open, and it was I was in the sports news media, and it was 100 people around him. It was ridiculous. I couldn't imagine what that was like. Talk to me a little bit more about some more golf stuff with Pat. Obviously, Pat did a lot of golf. How long was he 15, 20 years he did the Masters? Was it that long, or am I too wide in the window?
Oh, I would think at least 20 years.
Okay.
Because his last year would have been when he went to Fox.
And Jim took over then, right?
Yeah, Jim joined in '86.
Oh, he did. Okay.
But he wasn't.
Right.
He wasn't the lead guy.
Right.
He took over for Pat. I guess when Pat went to Fox, because once he went to Fox, there was no more doing CBS stuff.
Right.
One of the fun things about the Masters is that you don't stay in a hotel. They rent out this Westlake Village, these big houses, and you share the house 2 or 3 people at a time. And back in the days when sports television was a little bit looser with the rules, and it was a little more imbibing and a little more partying, those guys in those houses, it was more like, Keith Moon could have fit in very well on the CBS golf crew. Let's put it that way.
So it was like a frat house then, basically.
It was a frat house. They had some fun times. Mailboxes got run over. Mattresses had to be changed. It was quite a scene. But I'll tell you one of the great golf things that I am proud of. Nicklaus made a bunch of runs after '86. And there was one year, I want to say it was probably 98. He was like 58 years old. It's 12 years later. And after Friday's round, he was in the hunt. And coming off the green, I got a one-on-one interview with him, surrounded by, thousands of people.
Yeah.
I'm one of those people. I want to hear who I'm talking to answer the question. I don't need to show what I know in my question. Yeah. I knew he was going to kill me with this, but I knew it was the answer to get. So I said, Jack, with all due respect, do you think you can win? Oh, my God. This lit a fuse in him. In front of thousands of people, he ripped me a new one. Of course I think I could win. I don't play golf unless I think I can win. I've never teed it up in a round thinking I couldn't win. What kind of question is? And people are laughing at me and sniggering at me, and I'm thinking inside, I'm happy because this answer is going in the movie, because this answer shows who Jack Nicklaus is. Yes. If I had said to him, prefaced, Jack, I know you are a competitor. You're an 18-time champion, major winner, 6-time Masters. I know you're a competitor. You wouldn't come out here if you didn't think you could win, but you wouldn't have gotten that answer. So that was good. Arnie, on his last appearance, off the 13th tee, there was a restroom for the golfers only. But a lot of the security guards at Pinkertons they would leave things in there for Arnie to sign. And Arnie's everything you ever thought he was.
Wow.
So there was, and I can even show it to you, there was an SI cover that came out that week that showed Arnie like in the 1960s in the sweater, looking like the coolest man who ever lived. And so I put it in the bathroom, just with a note, could you sign it? And we're outside, which is totally unprofessional, as you know. And
Yes.
we're out by the tee box, a little bit ahead with the camera crew, but I could hear him in the bathroom crack up laughing when he sees the picture. He hadn't seen the picture. And I hear him going, oh my, look how young I was there. And he signed it. And I went scurrying back in the bathroom and I got my thing real quick. He was a real sweetheart. He was fun. He was a nice man. I'll show you. Hang on, I want to make a little move and see if this works. There it is. Do you see it?
Yeah, go down a little, tilt down. There you go. That's awesome. That is awesome.
So that was terrific.
That's awesome.
I'll tell you a Pat's story about playing golf with Pat.
I'd love to hear it.
In the year 2000, I'm doing that season with him, and we're in Dallas, and we want to play golf. I can't tell if he wants to play golf or he wants to take me golfing because he knows I like to play golf. It's also freezing. It's winter. It's like 38 degrees. Pat wants to play. I can't say no to Pat. I'm coming down with some kind of a flu of some sort. And I'm thinking, there's no way Pat wants to play in this weather. There's no way. It's 38 degrees out. And I'm like in bed, sweating it out, thinking, please cancel on me. Please. And my phone rings. It's Pat. You ready to tee it up? You don't say no to Pat Summerall.
Right.
I get out of bed. I take a shower. I get to the first tee. I'm sick as a dog, but I'm playing with Pat. And we played 18 holes. And I'm like, I don't know how he's doing it. At this point, Pat's got to be late 70s. I don't know why he wants to play golf, but I'm not saying no to Pat.
Right.
And he gets out there, he doesn't say a word, doesn't complain. He's playing. I'm dying. And we're playing golf in this ridiculously cold weather because I'm not saying no to Pat. And the last thing I'm going to do is chicken out on Pat either.
So how did it end up?
Oh, he beat me.
What kind of player was he? Was he like scratch? How good was he?
At this point, he couldn't hit the ball far anymore.
Right.
He just couldn't hit the ball.
How about in his
prime, he could play.
Prime,
Pat was an athlete. Pat was a junior tennis champion in Florida.
Really?
When he could play golf, he was a hell of a golfer.
Huh.
But at this point, he was broken down and old. He'd already gone through alcoholism and rehab from it, and his knees were shot. And he couldn't hit the ball very far. But let me tell you something. If you were in a scramble with Pat, he was your short shots. He was your putters. He was your putt. He was your short game expert.
All right, Michael. So not only, you work with two of the giants in the history of sports broadcasting, work with so many people. You work with Kenny Albert and, guys like that are still going strong today. Tony Saragusa was an interesting dude, and you worked with him for 5 years. You have a golf story about him, right?
Oh yeah, he's a fun guy. He was when he would travel around, he had a following. He was funny. He was strong as an ox, as you would not be surprised. He'd say hello to me, give me a tap on the back, and I swear, I think I got CTE from that. It wasn't nasty. It was just that he was that strong.
Right.
But for anyone who thinks that a nose tackle is just about, he's a big guy, of course he's good. Let me tell you about an athlete. So first year I'm going to work with him, preseason game in Green Bay. I arranged for us to go play TPC Green Bay. I'm going to play golf with him for the first time. So I spend all week practicing, going to the range, grooving my game. I ship my clubs, I shine my shoes. I got my little outfit. I'm all set to go. And we go out to play golf. He shows up. He's brought nothing. He's wearing, tight polyester slacks, a button-down shirt. He's brought no equipment. He's wearing loafers, no socks. He's a 15 shoe. They have no shoes to sell them or lend them. And he didn't bring his clubs. And he's a lefty. So they give him this lefty set. I go to the first tee, and I hit my little 220-yard tee shot, feeling pretty proud of myself. He goes up there with lefty club, and he hits this huge slice OB. Give me another ball. Tees it up. Huge slice, OB. I hate these clubs. Give me your club. Tony, I'm a righty. Give me your club. Tony, just shut up and give me your club. He takes my right-handed driver, sets up as a lefty with the club upside down, and rips the ball 50 yards past me. I was never the same. I'm still not the same. Yeah, that's an athlete. Not just a big bear.
He wasn't just a run stopper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, the night he threatened to break my legs if I didn't get more on cameras, that was an interesting evening, but that's something different. I think he was half joking.
You think?
I hope.
Certainly. So Pat and John, you got another story you wanted to share with us. I know we talked about, and it involves little card game,
Poker.
right?
Poker.
Yeah.
Friday nights, we didn't go out much because John was always getting mobbed and it just got too tiresome. So we'd stay in a banquet room. We'd play cards. So Cincinnati, my first year with them, I only know 7-card stud. But they're starting to play all these Texas Hold'em games, pass the trash, and it's dealer's call. And, it's Bob and Sandy. Rich Russo is the second BA. It's me. And we're playing poker, and the deal comes to me. So I'm trying to keep track of all the games. And let's play that. What's the one when you pass the schmutz around the table? And they go, what was that word? The pass the trash game. No, that's not what you said. What did I say? And Russo goes, you said schmutz. I said, you passed the schmutz. And Pat and John look at me, and Pat's like, what does this word mean? I said, well, I guess it's a Yiddish word. It kind of means dirt or trash. So guess what stuck on me as a nickname for about, 10 years that I had to really work to get rid of. I was schmutz for 10 years.
Schmutz.
Didn't like that. So we're playing out in Newport Beach in a banquet room. And at this point, I've learned the game. I've also learned that A, Bob Stenner doesn't like to lose. And B, he doesn't know the rules. Now, for those of you that know Texas Hold'em, we'd play a high and a low. So you could bet, before you had to declare, I'm going for the high, I'm going for the low. Or if you want to steal the whole pot and I do a split pot, you're going both ways and pull the whole thing in. It also was very important that what you declared is what you were going for. So if you say, I'm going for both, and it turns out you win one but tie the other, you don't win. You lose. So Bob declares wrong, loses, I should get the whole pot based on his declare, not the cards. Yeah. And Bob's like, no, you guys know what I meant. And then, of course, he pulled rank. I'm the producer, you're the AD, I'm taking the money. I said, I don't even know why am I even bothering to play with you guys? I could save time if I just took my money, and with that I grabbed 4 singles in my pocket, and I just threw it over the railing to the lobby below, fluttering down. Ben, you've never seen 4 millionaires scramble. I think if they had, ladders and rope, they would have gone over the railing for my $4. I cared less with the $4 than they did. Scrambling like the house was on fire to go get my 4 singles. There we go. Stop wasting my time. Here's my $4.
I love it. He didn't like to lose, and he didn't know the rules.
Exactly.
That's classic, man. That's awesome. What else do you have in the tank that you'd like to share as we come to a conclusion here? Anything else left in your tank?
Yes.
I mean, you could go for hours, I know.
I could go for hours, and you don't need that. I'll give you another couple Madden Summeralls. So
great.
You have a cough key, as you know, which is literally so announcers can cough and not have it heard over the air. But it's also a back channel communication that doesn't go out on TV.
Right.
So we're doing a Giant game. O.J. Anderson, running back for the Giants. He goes over the top, dives over the top for a touchdown. He gets kicked squarely in the boy parts.
Oy.
Bob hits his key to John and goes, good thing he's wearing a cup. John hits back. They don't wear cups in football, you schmuck. Lets the key go and just keeps on going. That was a good one. Bob's like, they don't. The other one was when fantasy football first started,
Oh boy.
It was all the rage, like 1991-ish.
Yeah.
We were all playing, but the very standard game. Quarterback got 6, receiver got 6. None of the fancy,
Yardage and all that wasn't born
yeah.
yet.
You didn't need a calculator to figure it out.
Got it.
So John has widely drafted in 1991 Rippon, Ricky Sanders, Gary Clark. He's got the quarterback and all the receivers.
Right.
He's killing us all season. And he was also best friends with Joe Gibbs, so he might have known before the year started. Watch out. Don't know.
Huh.
So Redskins come down. Rippon throws a touchdown pass to Gary Clark or whatever. John calls the replay over the air. Hey, Rock Rippon, great protection, drops back, hits Gary Clark, and without missing a beat, cough key hit over the cough key. 12 more points for Madden, you schmucks. He gets released. He keeps going with his call. So what you heard over the air was a perfectly called replay. But he managed to sneak in a dig at us that no one heard but us, and then pick it up. You would never have known there was that middle chunk. And the one year that I won, and I wanted John to sign it showing I won, he just wrote, "Fuck you." I didn't sign his name. Come on. Can't you sign your name?
Oh man. I mean, honestly, man, in a couple of years we've known each other and got to know each other. I love hearing you tell these stories, and I hope those that watched, listened, or both, whatever it was, because we're all over on this thing. We're on YouTube, we're on Twitter, Facebook, we're on audio, podcasts, all over, Michael. But it's awesome, man. I have so much appreciation for your time in the business, the people you've worked with, the events you worked with, and I love hearing the stories. So I hope those out there that listened or watched feel the same way, man, because I'd have a hard time believing they didn't, because there's stuff you worked in that area. What do we call it? We were talking, I want to say in Phoenix, maybe when we last worked together, like the golden era of sports television.
Yes.
Right?
Golden age, the things I got to do, the places I got to go, the budgets were totally different. Little sports were covered like real sports. So I got to do skiing in Switzerland, the Tour de France twice. They flew me twice in the Concorde to get back in time for an edit or something.
Wow.
25 countries. I did NFL Europe. Do you want to hear my story about the first time I directed? Did we miss that little story?
Yeah, that's probably important. We should probably close with that. What do you think?
Yeah.
And then I'm going to hit you on your top 3 Seinfelds, and then we'll call it a wrap. How's that?
All right. So yeah, you got it. By the
Go
way,
ahead.
just so you know, when we're done, I'm doing a Brent Stover podcast where I'm going to tell stories about you.
Fantastic.
There you go.
There's not much to tell.
Okay.
I'm pretty boring.
No, you're not. Do you want to open up with a question about directing stories, or we just go into it?
Well, I mean, I get how this works. I've been at it for 26. You've got 38, you said. So I'm just going to go out on a limb and say after you were an associate director for a few years, you got your first chance. So walk me through that.
All right. So when I was the associate producer with Madden Summerall with Bob and Sandy, we're driving out to Dallas one day to the game. Sandy says to Bob, "Hey, what do you think about giving the kid a chance to direct today?" I'm in the back seat. I'm thinking, "Oh no, I don't want to do that. I'm not ready for it.
No.
I haven't studied for it. Please, dear God, no." Bob goes, "Okay, if it's a blowout, 18 points was the blowout number. He can direct."
Okay.
No one has ever prayed for a close game more than I did. Please, please, please. I'm not
I pray
ready
for that every
this.
game.
Please.
I get
More than any gambler has ever prayed on a game. Please. Sure enough, Cowboys blow out whoever they're playing. Sandy pulls off his headset, a commercial. "Michael, you're up." Yeah. You got to do what you got to do.
Here you go, man. Here you go.
So I jump in the seat. I've studied, you don't study for a game as the AD the same way you do as the producer, the director.
Mm-hmm.
Game starts, and this was like 92. This is the height of the rumor, the fake rumor, the false rumor that Troy Aikman was gay.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I've made like one camera cut, and Bob, the producer, goes, "Look at camera 6." I look up, and I see 6 men. They're all dressed in Daisy Duke shorts, padded bras, stuffed, and they each have a letter on their painted on their belly. AIKMAN. And I'm like, you don't want that on television, do you? He goes, oh yeah, I do. I go, no, Bob, no, I'm just starting here. Don't end my career before I start. No, I wouldn't have all these things on the wall. Please, no.
Exactly.
I'll take responsibility. Put it on the air. There we go, on the air. Now this becomes run a play, show the guy in the Daisy Dukes. Run a play, show the guy in the Daisy Dukes. Now Bob calls for a super slow-mo replay.
Oh boy.
All right, ready mo, fly mo, roll mo. And the shot is of a police officer leading one of the guys out of the stadium, holding on to the guy's bra strap. And Pat says, having not seen it, having not been cued in, Pat's ad lib, I've always found those to be a convenient handle. John, headset comes off. He can't stop laughing. And so I'm like, oh my God, they're never going to let me direct a game again. They're going to kill me in New York. It's never going to happen again. Thank God it was like a 3-and-out series, maybe one first down punt, series over. Sandy, please jump in. Sandy's been doing my job. Somehow Sandy messed up my job going to commercial. I don't know what he did, but it was enough of a mistake that Ted Shaker, the boss, the same one who spotted me as a ticket scalper, gets on the headset thinking he's talking to me and says, Michael, what just happened? And Sandy goes, oh, that's not Michael. It's me. It's me, Sandy. Ted goes, is Michael okay? Oh, no, he's okay. He's been directing. Well, Monday morning, Bob and Sandy got an earful because I had made no mistake as director, but their feeling was, hey, we're the bosses. We're management. You don't decide your AD gets to direct on national television, the biggest game. We decide. They got in trouble. I didn't. That was my first chance directing. My first assignment to direct was at Fox. Fox had NFL Europe. 1995, this league had been shut down for 2 years. It used to be called the World League of American Football. It was ABC. It was ESPN. Fox was now 50-50 partners with the NFL, restarting it as NFL Europe. So they send us all over, all of us who'd never done games before. That was my full directing resume then. And we did the same thing we do now, which is meet with the coaches, meet with the players. And I had a full day with the Dutch camera people who had never seen a football game to teach them. I had tapes, I had sketches, 7 guys and girls. Actually, the 2 of the camera operators were girls. They were very good. They had never covered a football game. They've done soccer, and they've done every sport but American football. And I remember one kid shows up. He's wearing like a Yankee hat, a Raider jersey, and North Carolina Jordan sweats. So I know he's into sports.
Yeah.
And I go through all my teachings, and I'm drawing plays up on the wall at Olympic Stadium in Amsterdam. I got tapes, I got this, I got that. But some of the questions they asked, I kind of made up the answer because I wasn't quite sure because I hadn't really thought about things like if a ball is thrown to a receiver and it goes over his head, do I follow the ball or the receiver? I'll get back to you on that one. So the one thing I did say was, hey, we're going to be together for 10 weeks. Let's get our shorts straight. And each week we'll build on what we're learning as we see things, as situations come up. So the guy in the Carolina Raider Yankee thing raises his hand. But Mr. Frank, what do you mean by shorts straight? I said, well, when you put on your shorts, you put on your shorts first, you get them straight, and then you put on your long pants. Shorts straight. We get it. Okay. Now, we had spent 2.5 hours with Al Luganbill, the coach of the Amsterdam Admirals, who coached Marshall Faulk, as you know, at San Diego State.
Yeah.
We heard everything from him, including his trip up the Amalfi Coast with his wife, the shopping, the this, the that, everything you can imagine about the team and this and that. So now we're going to go be on TV. Here we go, guys. There's no pregame show. It's just we're going to come on up. Here we go. First shot, camera 5, the kicker, very good. Ready, 5, take 5. Second shot, camera 1, give me the deep guys. Ready, 1, take 1. All right, here we go. Camera 2, you got the kick. Ready, 2, take 2. I made 3 camera cuts. Opening kick. All 7 guys do beautiful arcs through the air, the blue sky, the clouds of smoke and clouds, and the pan down to the return guy. There's only one problem. They open this season with a surprise onside kick. No one followed the ball. Didn't have it live. Didn't have a replay. They all arced for a ball that went skimming up the left sideline. And I'm screaming, the ball, follow the ball, the brown thing. And the same voice would ask about the short straight.
Yep.
But Mr. Frank, you never told us about the short kick. So that was next week's lesson. But I know where Al Luganville's wife shopped. I knew that. I told that story to Madden. He cried. He cried.
That is classic. You've been doing the Patriots for almost 20 years, and I know you're hoping to do that later this year. And like the rest of us that are in this business, we're all kind of taking it a day at a time, waiting and just seeing what happens. So one thing I wanted to ask you before we wrap up here: top 3 Seinfelds.
Ooh, I'll go backwards.
All right.
Number 3 would be. Not that there's anything wrong with it.
Yep.
Number 2 would be The Contest. My number 1 is Yada Yada Yada, but mainly because of the whole dentist theme. That whole thing at the end when Robert Wagner and Jill St. John come on, and Tim Watley was a patient of mine. If this wasn't my daughter's wedding, I'd kick your ass, you anti-dentite bastard.
Rabbit.
And then Deborah Messing ends with the punchline. It turns out she's a racist, and they freeze on Jerry's face.
Right.
I say yada yada yada.
Yeah, that's a good list. I'm gonna go.
What's yours?
I'm gonna go The Contest 1, The Soup Nazi 2, and the Adopt a Highway. Or no, I'm sorry, that's number 4. The Merv Griffin set is number 3 for me.
Oh yes.
Because I don't know if I can keep filling 8 hours a day on my own talk show, Michael. I don't know if I can do it.
I think you and I have proven so far. You and I probably could.
We could, man. I mean, we easily could. We're both, we speak in Seinfeld, for those out there listening and watching.
Because Seinfeld spoke in us. I mean, that the reality of all his observations are so, we've all done that. That's why everyone says, well, I could write a Seinfeld episode, but no, we couldn't. But we all can relate to his stuff is so relatable.
Everything comes back, man. I mean, I can find anything we're doing in life, talking about something there's some kind of connection to Seinfeld. And
yes,
we both watched the Netflix special that Jerry released a week ago, not about 10 days ago, I think it was, wasn't it?
Yes, last Tuesday.
Yeah.
I think it was the 8th.
That was good, and we kind of rehashed that already. So, hey, man, I just want to say thanks for doing this and taking time out of your day and sharing some awesome stories, man. I'm telling you, you got to write a book, man.
I'd like to write a book, but you know what? Sitting here and talking on Zoom is so much easier. Writing a book, you got to take your hand out, you got to write, you got to edit. This is easy. Maybe if you want to interview me and maybe Luke could type out the transcripts. This is easy. Talking is easy. Writing is work.
That's usually what I'm doing when we're doing, the road team when we do football together. I'm sitting here typing everything out like a court reporter,
Yeah, you should.
I miss doing that. It's been a while.
Yeah, I know. That was, missed our hangs. But like I said, I'm going to go over it. I got a podcast, got to look Brent Stover. We're going to tell stories about you and Jay Feely.
You're kidding, right?
Of course I'm kidding.
Yeah.
We have good stories. But
there's not much to tell, man. I just love to work in sports. And,
yes.
I love them all. So, that's what I like, too. You've done so many different things. And, the skiing story with Billy Johnson, that's awesome stuff. The golf, the basketball. I mean, my dad's 68. He's a carpenter. And he said, at a young age, he tried to teach me to be versatile. And it took me a few years to get that. But I get what he was trying to teach me back then. So,
yes.
Good stuff, man. Well, thanks for doing this, bud. And appreciate your time, man. Always great to catch up, my friend.
Absolutely. It's great to see you. I like your wall, too. You got some cool stuff there, the Jim Craig and the Miracle. I like the lacrosse stick. Looks like it's been recently used.
That's my son's. Yep.
Yeah. But, this was fun. Anytime you like. Let me know what our ratings look like. How many hits do we get? I want to know how many hits.
Just so you know, this will be out in a couple days. My son's coming over tomorrow. He's my editor. When I started doing this with my son, I said, here's the deal. If you and I do a podcast, whether it's video, audio, however the heck we're doing it, I said, you're the host and you can be the producer, but I'm the co-host. I know this is obscure. I'm the co-host, but I'm the EP, the executive producer. just because of experience. I mean, experience has got to mean something, right?
Totally, absolutely. You should
So,
get the highest. You should get net points, and the son gets gross points. And then you play with the books, and there never are gross points. Oh no, sorry. You get gross. I got it backwards. You take gross points from $1. He gets net points, which means you write off everything against it. You never show a profit. Lucas doesn't get $1. That's how you got to do it.
Well, I already screwed up. I'm not a very strong father that way because I pay him when he comes over to help me. So he's the only one making money, man. So I'm doing this. We're just doing it for fun. And again, this was a lot of fun, Michael. So thanks for doing this, and see you down the road, my friend.
Talk to you. Thanks. I enjoyed it, Ben.
Me too. This has been No Holding Back with Michael Frank. Ben
No
Holden.
Holding Back.
See you next time on an all new edition.